Welcome to an extra cast. The last couple of weeks, I've had a lot of great new customers come into the store. A lot of them with inquiries about where to start, how to start, and where to go. Everyone has different points of views and opinions about how to do this. I'm hoping what I'm about to show you will help. For example, I'm actually going to start mostly with collected edition stuff, so trade paperbacks or graphic novels. Call them whatever you like. I just usually call them collected editions to make it more simple for everyone involved. If you're loving the shows, for example, if you're loving WandaVision, there's this Vision. This is a fantastic one about him and his super family. I don't want to give anything away from this, but it's a complete edition. The full story is in one book. You can learn a lot more about Vision and the family tree there, as you can see. That's a great way to start if you're loving that show. And this is a nice introduction to more information about those characters. And then with, of course, the Falcon and Mr. Winter Soldier showing up very soon, I think next month, middle of the month. There's plenty of books that they star in, not always necessary with their title, but this is, a great story with the two of them, very much focused on them. So there's plenty of stuff. If you're just into the films, there's plenty of books you can pick up. You don't need to read 1,000 other things to read this or the Vision one. They're just one-off stories that travel through itself. And even with Star Wars, there's hundreds of stories now where it's just, you pick up the book, you've got the full story. You don't have to read volume 1 to, 1,000 or something ridiculous. But these are all great starting places. I've got more examples of this kind of thing in a minute for some of the other companies. But to me, like, one-shot stories, as I call it, are always really, I don't know, for me, I even prefer them a lot of the time. Like, I'd prefer to get one book, I've got the full story, I learn the whole thing, and then I'll buy another book that has the full story, because then I get another cool, it's just, I don't know why, but I've always loved that a lot more than giant ongoing series. Even though I collect giant ongoing series, I oddly have always felt more in love with just a nice start and finish, solid, with a good middle. Like, it's just a solid one-off story. Speaking of long things, so Amazing Spider-Man, one of the probably most difficult books to track if you're trying to do all of it. I suggest you don't have to. That's the big thing with all the big Marvel, DC comics, like Detective and all that, like for DC and even Action Comics. You don't need to start from the start. You've all seen the movies. You've all seen or heard about these characters now. They're not, obscurities that you know nothing about. If you do know nothing about a particular character and want to learn more, just ask your local comic shop guy or even on Facebook, and someone will always be able to help you out. The great thing with Spider-Man is obviously they go back to I've actually picked up volume 2 here, but they go back to volume 1 quite often for these collected editions. Most of the time, if you pick up any volume from these, you can still get a story that is its own story, which is quite good. But with Amazing Spider-Man right now, Nick Spencer's writing it, so it's pretty easy. You can get volume 1 right through to, I think they're up to like 9 or 10 volumes already. But it's still accessible and easy to collect, and very easy. Like, if you pick up a Spider-Man book and you go, I think that continues, or I want more, as long as you know who did it and what year, it can be sought after quite quickly or found easy. And once again, the prices for like some of these collected editions vary. They're all over the place. But if you're starting collecting and you want something like Spider-Man, now's probably a good time to look at Spencer. And then in the future, you're going to have, actually, I'll come back to that. In the future, there'll be an easier way if you want to go into the single format, but I'll keep going with trades. So like Venom, this is number 1 from Kate's current run. This is absolutely amazing. This has led up into a giant event at the moment in the single issues. It's a fair bit to take in, but it's a great starting place if you like the character Venom. Once again, you've seen the film. The film is very different to how he appears, but like how he starts in the comics. The origin's very different. But at the same time, you don't need to know all that information anymore. Like, this story doesn't matter how he was created as much, but matters that you know that Venom is a symbiote. Like that's the borderline. He's been on multiple people. So once again, you don't need to know like an insane amount of history, maybe some basic information, and I'd be surprised if you didn't know some of that basic information. In saying that, if you feel like you don't know, it's very easy to Google. This is a fantastic story. I can't suggest this enough. I'm loving it. I'm going to always suggest Kate's work. He's just fantastic. But yes, once again, if you're starting, these are all great starting places to look at. If you're not interested as much in that and you want to look more indie stuff, Umbrella Academy, obviously being a hit Netflix show, brilliant place to start. I think there's maybe 3 books all up that conclude this whole story. So at the moment, so that sort of shows once again 3 solid books. This is number 3 that you can literally pick up. We should have all of them on the shelf there. It means that you've got 1, 2, 3. It's not like you're going and buying 6,000 books. A lot more simple. If you want a giant run, there's plenty of giant runs. This one's a bit longer. It's about 9 volumes now. But like this is what I call the staple of you must suggest. If you work in a comic store and don't suggest this to people, you're doing something wrong. Because Saga is the best-selling trade paperback pretty much for every store at the moment. Like it has been for since it came out. Pretty much, it's insane. It's very cheap. We do it between. I'm going to say this one's about $17.50. $17.50 to $18.50. It depends on when it's come out. So this one at the moment $17.50. But I love this, hands down one of the greatest stories out at the moment. Obviously, it's been a bit. There's been a big gap between Volume 9. I think it is Volume 9. And what's next? There's been like a 3-year wait. But in saying that, this is worth jumping on. It means you've got 9 volumes out there. If you love Star Wars and sci-fi and stuff like that, you'll enjoy this a lot. It's got a very Romeo and Juliet vibe too. So like, there's something here for everyone. Like, these are just books I'm picking out that I think are great starting places if you don't know what to read. And like, if you're not interested in the superheroes, Saga is a fantastic place to start. Same with Paper Girls, also by Brian K. Vaughan. Fantastic place to start. Imagine Stranger Things, but with time travel. That's how I'm going to explain this. Brilliant writing. Just fantastic. The way that I sort of am looking at this is that, like, I'm trying to think of books here that you don't have to know like 6 billion years worth of information. Like The Boys, number 1. The Boys, straight up, it's a pretty big series and they're in large collected editions, but it's all out. You can get the whole story now. So if you finish this, you can go, awesome, I loved it, I want to get number 2. Sorry, the sun just moved straight onto my face. So at least you can see the book. Who cares about me? So all of it's out. This is super gory. This is adult content for sure. But like, I just think this is a brilliant way if you're looking to start. If you like the show as well, like I know I keep saying that, but shows right now do detect sort of a lot whatever. They sort of push to what people are going to read. Now, Batman. If you're really, really starting and really not sure, but you want to read some Batman, I suggest Earth 1, Volume 1 and 2. That's the complete thing for this. That's all it is. They're $22.50 each. So there you go. For $40, pretty much, you've got the full story. This gives you an origin to Batman. It gives you a fantastic story. I really enjoyed these myself. I've read these multiple times. Absolutely fantastic. I actually enjoy all the Earth 1 stuff. I think the only one I sort of struggled with was Teen Titans. They did an Earth 1 of, and it just didn't match up to what I was expecting. But people disagree with me, so that's fine. You're allowed to do that. But this is, a fantastic starting place. If you really want to sort of start from the start with Batman, this will give you a more of an origin vibe and, maybe fill in some gaps, stuff that you didn't realise. And once again, like with DC and Marvel, there's so many different versions of how each hero started and ended that you can kind of borderline pick and choose how you want to go with the mythos. So, I don't know, I just think this is an excellent way to begin. All of DC's Earth 1 books are fantastic places to sort of start a character with, and then you can dive deep, like way deeper into more about them. Like example, I'm going to say Hush here. Like Batman Hush, like this is one of the must-read Batman books. Absolutely fantastic. Through this, you'll basically get to meet nearly every single one of Batman's villains, and it's just an amazing story. I know they did an animated movie of this, but unfortunately, that animated movie is a bit different to the book. They couldn't quite fit everything in, so I do suggest reading this over that animated film. This is just cool. Like, there's just so much happening. Pardon me. It's without ruining anything. Once again, you don't have to know 1,000 things. The cool thing is this will probably introduce you to some characters that you might not know or didn't think you would care about or like that much. Sorry, that glare is really driving me insane now. It's smashing me right in the eyes. So this is fantastic. Even if you're a first-time reader, like, you can get onto this and understand what's going on. The best bit is Batman stories, like, you're going to know his origin pretty well. Parents dead, Batman. Like, that's it. Then you've got books like this, which I absolutely love. White Knight. Fantastic story. And there's a bunch of other stories like this where they're basically, what I say, in a different universe. So it's a different story telling idea of how Batman and Joker interact and stuff like that. This is brilliant. You can read this and don't need to read anything else. There is a sequel, and I think there's about three of these now, these White Knight continuations. But you don't need the others. That's fantastic about this, is you can just read this. You don't need anything else. So I always love it when you've got a comic that you can read and you can just read that, like, for a collected edition anyway. So White Knight, 100% suggest jumping on that. It's a bit newer than most of the other stuff I've said. And also, speaking of new, final trade is Shazam, Magic Lands, and the 7 Magic Lands. I really enjoyed this. It was a fun read. This is very light-hearted, fantastic for if you're sort of not sure where you want to start, like I said, and Shazam's a character that interests you. This is a fantastic starting or jumping on point for the character. I suggest reading this and then going back and having a look at some of his back catalogue. All the characters that are out now, like Green Lantern, Harley Quinn, and so on, Wonder Woman, blah, 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 you can literally find a book that will be readable if you know little to nothing, or if you want to learn. Like, if you want to know more about the said character, like Shazam in this, I feel like this gives you a nice roundup of the entire Shazam family, without getting too origin-y. Like, I think a lot of people, once again, have seen the films, seen animated movies, played video games. You know a lot about these characters, even if you don't realize it. So you don't necessarily need a complete origin story. A lot of these books will quickly like dive into going like a mention of the origin. That's all you really need a lot of the time. It's just go, oh, you remember how you got those powers, blah, 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 and then keep going. In saying that, if you do want like deep dives on origins and stuff like that, there's plenty of books there that are easy to suggest for that kind of thing as well. Now, single issues. People always seem to be trying to jump in on singles at some of the weirdest points. It is quite difficult to figure out where a story starts and ends when you're midway through stuff. But you're lucky right now. So if you jump in right now, you can go into any comic store and you can find Future State. Whoa, that's a lot of glare. All right, so Future State. So that's Batman, Superman, #1. So that's in store. You got Suicide Squad, #1. You got the next Batman, #1. And the fantastic thing about most of these is they're just 2-parters. I think next Batman's a 4-parter. But it means you can get all of those like in store now, #1. Start that story. Read the 2-parter or the 4-parter and decide if you like it. I even suggest to a lot of people, go through a bunch of back issues. So if you come into the store here, you'll see that we've got all our back issues all set up. You could go through that and go, right, grab one Moon Knight book, grab one Batman book, grab one Aquaman, grab one this, and grab it from a mixture of time periods. Just read, have a look at the art, and if you look at it and go, you know what, Moon Knight's a character that interested me, then we can help suggest where to start for Moon Knight. If Batman interested you, but you were like, I really like the art of this particular series or something, we can help source books similar to that, or that bigger book, collected edition of that artist or something like that. But with singles, I just straight up believe that you have to kind of check when things are changing. So right now, Future State's a great place to jump on, because then after Future State, after these mini-series, that looks like a lot of stuff goes back to #1. So if you want to jump onto Harley, that's going to jump back to #1. and various other ones. So 100% suggest that's a great starting place for anyone that wants to collect DC. Now with Marvel. Marvel right now is obviously in the middle of a big event called King in Black. I say obviously, but there's some people that would definitely not have a clue what I'm talking about. King in Black is a big Venom thing that's happening. I'm enjoying it a lot, but it's very difficult to jump in on a big event. So my suggestion is wait for that to come out collected if you haven't already been reading it, or if you haven't been reading the singles as is. So to get into Marvel, they're literally in a couple of months' time doing a thing called Heroes Reborn. Now, Heroes Reborn seems like a very interesting thing. I suggest you Google it, have a look at through what they're releasing, and I suggest jumping onto some of those number ones because it's a great place to start. I'm assuming they're going to do something very similar to Future State, so there'll be like a 2-month thing where you'll get these books that are maybe 1 to 4-parter stories, so very accessible for new collectors. And then after that, you'll see some new number ones and some new things starting, and that'll be just a great place to jump on. So my suggestion for singles is just sort of come in, jump onto Future State for DC now, and then get ready for the next lot of, it's called Infinite Frontier is where it starts for the next sort of number ones. And then for Marvel, you've still got a bit of time. Check out Heroes Reborn, see if there's something there that piques your interest. And then if not, also have a look for what's coming in after Heroes Reborn, because that's where I believe a refresh will happen and a great way to start collecting. I hope this helps. If you're into the older stuff, there's 1,000 other things I could probably suggest and help you with. My 100% suggests out of that pile of books, like seriously, if you are loving WandaVision, obviously read Vision. If you're loving all the Marvel movies and stuff like that, I'd suggest jumping onto like Spider-Man and Venom. Obviously, Saga is a must-read, and Batman Hush. I can't suggest all those trades. I grabbed the ones that I would always suggest, and I've read pretty much all of them. I think there's one there that I might not have completely read that I know most of the story from anyway. But yeah, 100%. If there's any other questions, please ask either myself or your local comic shop person, guy, friend, whatever, lady, whatever you can sort of do. Everyone's super friendly in the community. So keep hunting out those comics. If you're looking for more information on how to start, please ask as many questions as you want. If you're looking for younger readers, there is now a bunch of great books out by IDW, which I can also suggest. All right. Thank you very much for listening to me ramble on this extra cast.